Let's spend a few minutes talking about Ezra Klein. I have never seen anybody, a public figure, rise so fast in the public estimation with his abundance book. Although, I know Ezra Klein has always had his critics, and I get that. Sure, you bet. I haven't read the Abundance book. I just kind of started watching Ezra Klein here and there. I was deeply critical of him. There was one interview he did with his wife, who is an economist. I'm sure they're both extraordinarily intelligent people, but they said some things that was like it was really fuzzy thinking to me. The big example that they used was there was no reason to vote for Trump because the economy was so great, as evidenced by the fact that people were eating out more. Well, you could call that a misleading statistic because if one section of the population is eating out twice as much and another section of the population is eating out half as much, that's really not telling you that figure isn't really as informative as it seems to be. And they both seem like smart enough people to get that. Um, there's something called politically motivated reasoning, which is a cognitive bias in psychology where because of mind-boggling amounts of cognitive dissonance, you look over some things to get to the answer you want for political reasons. And both sides are absolutely prone to doing it. I'm more and more, this is a bit of a side note, but more and more I'm convinced that extremists at either end of the spectrum are essentially psychologically identical. But let's talk about Ezra. I sort of, from what I understood of the Abundance book, which again I didn't read, he was making some points and he had some criticisms of how Democrats were running things, particularly overwhelming amounts of, little niggling, excessive administrative state requirements to get anything done. An example he used was rural broadband, where in rural Montana, to apply for a government grant to bring broadband, out to these more remote areas, you had to incorporate, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but one of the questions on the grant application was, how are you going to incorporate DEI initiatives in your project? Which maybe, a contractor in Montana who digs ditches genuinely wouldn't have an answer to. I mean, Montana is a relatively white state, and I know that there's a lot of indigenous American communities out there too. I mean, maybe there was an answer. I don't know. But it's like I'm looking for a grant to dig a hole and put some cable in it, and I really need to do this DEI thing. Again, generally speaking, I'm sort of in support of diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially that middle part, equity. I think we've got one of the most inequitable societies, since the pharaohs ran Egypt. So, and everybody, you remember that in the halcyon days of 2 months ago? Everybody was talking about abundance, 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 abundance. It was almost getting old. But, there's an extent. I'd watched a few of his interviews, some of which were, moderately interesting. Um, I was kind of excited for him in a vicarious way. Wow, people are listening. I've written a book. Everybody's talking about it. And then in the history of bad titles, and Lord knows I've written some terrible titles myself. I can be guilty of this. In the history of bad titles, the title Charlie Kirk Did Politics Right is way up there. It is so far up there. And in this I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe in an extraordinary. I think we should have like this is the richest country in the world. It makes perfect sense that we would have the strongest social safety net in the world, rather than giving tax breaks to billionaires who are on their way to becoming trillionaires. But instead, Elon Musk gave $270 million to bring Trump into power, which, by the way, is the equivalent of someone making $35,000 a year giving $20 to the candidate or charity of their choice. That's the actual scale. I mean, Elon Musk may well have found $270 million, like, between the cushions on his couch. Hey, kids, that's a reference to when we used to have change that would fall out of our pockets. Anyway, so Ezra, okay, Ezra does that. There is I mean, I do think what separates us, I say us, maybe advisedly, you could say liberals, left-leaning people, um, from conservatives, despite the emphasis conservatives place on Christianity. It's more of a fire and brimstone, you're going to get yours kind of Christianity than love thy neighbor Christianity. So we're the party of empathy and understanding. And hey, that's great. The other side says, Elon Musk again said, what's holding history back is the existence of empathy, and we need to stamp it out. Yeah, who else said that? The Nazis. Need I say more? So Ezra said Charlie Kirk did politics right, which was almost as far as I got with the article, except that somebody quoted the article where he said, "I envied what Charlie Kirk built." Charlie Kirk built what he built on the back of extremely violent political rhetoric. He literally called for Joe Biden to be executed. He called for public executions, which children should be made to watch. He used every racist platitude imaginable to get hits. And also, frequently said, hey, a couple dead kids at school is what we need to maintain our Second Amendment rights. That just doesn't seem accurate to me. And not to mention, from a forensic psychology perspective, I think the Second Amendment is wildly misinterpreted. That's probably a second video. And I don't want this video to be too damn long, because who wants to spend that much time talking about Ezra Klein? But I also understand Ezra kind of got pwned by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who I also know has his own critics. I don't know a lot about Ta-Nehisi Coates either, quite frankly. He said a couple of things in a documentary that I saw that I thought were, pretty cogent. Somebody wants to be angry at me because I said something nice about Ta-Nehisi Coates, or I mean, I kind of did say some nice things about Ezra Klein too. I mean, I guess go ahead, but man, Ezzy, baby, what? Charlie Kirk did not do politics the right way. He just died in a way that liberals felt like if they fell all over themselves expressing their sympathy, that, it would be this kumbaya moment between us and MAGA. That didn't work out, did it? Yeah. So, nobody's talking about abundance anymore. That is just done. I've never seen anybody. I mean, one of the reasons Charlie Kirk may have built something that you envy is because he didn't wreck it within 6 weeks of getting it out there. You know, I mean, I'm not even sure what the equivalent would be. It would be like Charlie Kirk saying, boy, Ta-Nehisi Coates is a good writer or something like that. So it's amazing to me that you've done this to yourself. Now, this is a channel. It is supposed to be about psychology, and I've said this any number of times that no matter where you're at, what you've done, how it's going, there's a way back. And I hope there's a way back. I mean, you're big public figure, so you're always going to be subject to some criticism. I've never met anybody yet. I couldn't find a huge disagreement to get into with, so that's going to continue to be true no matter what happens from here. But dude, I mean, did you have to, I mean, did you have to? I mean, you don't you don't always have to comment on everything, right? So I don't know what happens from here. Ezra's not not I haven't watched the show in a while. I mean I hope he's okay. I'm sure he's licking his wounds in a very expensive condo in Manhattan or something. I don't actually know where he lives. That was maybe a dick thing to say. But, dude, just far be it from me to say I've never said anything that I didn't feel stupid about later. But you've kind of, from what I've heard with Ta-Nehisi Coates, you doubled down. You know, you're like, split the cards. I'm trying to use a blackjack thing. I forget what that's called. I should never try and use metaphors. I'm not sure where they're going from. So Ezra, honestly, if you hear this, I know you won't. If you hear this, I hope you're doing okay. I hope maybe you're starting to learn your lesson. And I mean, look, dude, you'll be back. So to Ezra and everybody else, well, first of all, to Ezra and everybody else, like, click, subscribe, share, give me a comment. I mean, let me tell you what you think. I mean, even if you're mad at me that I don't know, I'm sort of defending Ezra Klein here. I know some people are going to be mad at me for doing that. I even defended Ta-Nehisi Coates a little bit. Everything counts as engagement. Troll the hell out of me. Do your worst. Bring it on. But Ezra and everybody else, and even the trolls, take care of yourself.